As many of you know, when the British Empire conquered new territories during its expansion phase, it didn't simply take land. It brought with it an entire way of life: norms, rules, culture, laws, customs, and of course, language. This process reshaped local identities in ways that are still visible today. In much the same way that Britain imposed its political and social systems, it also imposed its naming conventions, overlaying local geography with British references. Cities, rivers, and landmarks were renamed through a distinctly British lens, often erasing or sidelining indigenous names in the process. Rather than forcing place names onto the landscape, a better way to describe it is that the empire exported its toponomastic tradition, imprinting familiar British names onto places they rather arrogantly claim to have discovered. Today, we are going to explore one specific Australian landmark that carries a very recognizable name in the UK. We'll look at its origins, how its dramatic collapse made it even famous, and uncover what local guides still describe as a mysterious love affair tied to that very moment. As we were saying, some of the most recognizable place names everywhere in the world are British in origin. In the United States, New York was named in honor of the Duke of York. The name itself traces back to the historic city of York in North Yorkshire, or Boston, Massachusetts, named after the town of Boston in Lincolnshire, England. Many of the early settlers of the Massachusetts Bay Colony came from that region, bringing the name with them across the Atlantic. Not far from Boston, we find Cambridge, Massachusetts, home to Harvard. The city was named after Cambridge, England, specifically to honor the university that many of the colony's founders had attended. It was a deliberate attempt to establish the settlement as a place of learning. But it wasn't only the United States and the Caribbean. British influence is still clearly visible in Manchester, Jamaica. Established as a parish during British colonial rule, it was named after Manchester in England, once again showing how familiar British names were exported wholesale across the empire, regardless of geography or local context. The pattern repeats itself across the former empire, revealing how geography became a canvas for imperial memory. Down under, we also find cities whose names echo places in the UK, most notably Perth in Western Australia, named after the city of Perth in Scotland, or Newcastle in New South Wales, named like its British namesake Newcastle upon Tyne for its importance as a coal mining and shipping port. And these choices were rarely accidental. Names were meant to feel familiar, comforting, and unmistakably British, even on the other side of the world. But it's not only cities. There's also the town of Brighton, home to around 23,000 inhabitants, and its Brighton Beach, both named after the coastal town of Brighton in England. The British original is famous for its pier stretching out into the sea, while the Australian version has gained popularity for its long row of colorful bathing boxes lining the shore. Now, about 200 kilometers away, you could once find an Australian natural landmark named after one of the most historic pieces of infrastructure still standing in London today, London Bridge, not to be confused with Tower Bridge. Or rather, you could find it if it had a collapse a few decades ago. And that collapse is exactly what we're here to explore. I was in Australia in 2015 and I was having an absolute blast. I have found a balance between being alone, far from friends and family, and feeling constantly enriched by new experiences, new environments, new people, new friends, a whole new country, new challenges, and plenty of satisfactions. Looking back, it was probably a life-changing opportunity. Right now, you're seeing some footage from that period of my life. Video quality has improved a lot since then, and it really shows. You might remember 2015 for moments that brought the world together. The dress, black and blue, or white and gold, Snapchat launching its first filters, and of course, Adele's Hello, and plenty of selfie sticks. In June, during the Australian winter, I decided to join one of those organized tours and explore the Great Ocean Road, a 243 kilometers scenic coastal drive along the southwestern coast of Victoria. Stretching between Torquay and Allensport, it's officially recognized as the world's largest war memorial, hand-built by returned soldiers between 1919 and 1932 to honor those killed in World War I. The route is renowned for its dramatic limestone cliffs, lush rainforests, and iconic rock formations like the 12 Apostles, Loch and Gorg, and the London Bridge. It offers some of the most spectacular ocean views in the southern hemisphere. Not knowing exactly what to expect, I was immediately blown away. This happened at a time in my life when I wouldn't do much research about a place I was about to visit, with the intention to have a real wow moment. Weird, I know, but let's move on. As we started the tour, I was mesmerized not just by the ocean itself, but by the surrounding nature and the wildlife living in it. During the hours-long drive, we stopped at multiple points along the route to explore the area. Of course, we stopped at the 12 Apostles, the landmark around which much of the Great Ocean Road's tourism economy revolves. It's the crown jewel of the route, and with good reason. The 12 Apostles are a collection of towering limestone stacks rising dramatically out of the Southern Ocean. Formed over millions of years of erosion, they were created as waves and wind gradually carved caves into the cliffs, which then became arches and eventually collapsed into isolated pillars. Despite their biblical name, there were never 12 stacks to begin with. At the time of naming, there were only 9, and today just 8 remain after a major collapse in 2005. But today isn't about that collapse. Today, we're talking about the fall of another giant, the London Bridge. Located within Port Campbell National Park, the London Bridge was one of the most unique and significant attractions along the Great Ocean Road, not just for its beauty. First, its unique geological structure. It was a rare, double-span natural bridge, meaning it had 2 distinct arches carved away the ocean, making it stand out among the many limestone formations in the area. Second, its accessibility. Unlike the 12 Apostles, which are viewed from afar, the London Bridge was a landmark you could physically interact with. Visitors could walk across the inner span to reach the outer section. Standing on the bridge offered a unique perspective of the rugged coastline that you simply couldn't get from the mainland. In earlier years, it was even possible to drive a car across the first arch, making it one of the most interactive stops along the route. And finally, its scientific value. The formation was, and still is, a textbook example of coastal geomorphology. It clearly demonstrated the arch life cycle, how caves became arches and arches eventually collapse. it was also an important habitat for local wildlife, including a colony of little penguins nesting in the sheltered areas below. But then came the collapse. On January 15, 1990, the London Bridge unexpectedly fell. My fair lady. The collapse affected the inner span that connected the bridge to the mainland, leaving behind rubble scattered across the ocean below. On the bridge, at the moment of collapse, was standing David Darrington. David took the original photos that have been uploaded in the abc.com.au website. You can reach through the QR code on screen right now. I don't have the rights to use those in a video, and honestly, I don't want to risk a copyright strike on my first YouTube video. The cause of the collapse was simple erosion. As we mentioned before, over time, waves infiltrated cracks in the limestone, weakening the structure until it finally gave way. This is a powerful reminder that this entire coastline is a work in progress. In the coming centuries, what we now call the 12 Apostles will collapse into the sea, while new formations will emerge through the same relentless process. But who was David Darrington, you may ask? David, alongside Kelly Byers, was visiting the bridge that Monday morning when the collapse occurred. The problem was that they were on the wrong side of it. As shown in photos taken just minutes earlier, the pair had crossed the first span to explore and take pictures when the bridge suddenly gave way. David and Kelly were left stranded on the newly formed island for several hours before being rescued by helicopter and brought safely back to shore. Miraculously, no one was in the bridge at the exact moment of collapse. In interviews given shortly afterward, Kelly admitted that she had been urging David to head back to the car when he stopped to take a few more photos. Perhaps that split-second decision may well have saved their lives. You might have noticed that I referred to David and Kelly interchangeably, as a pair and a couple. That's because their relationship was never fully clarified. My guide referred to them as a couple enjoying an afternoon away, or, to put it more bluntly, an affair. However, when interviewed by local television, the two claimed they were cousins, possibly to avoid upsetting friends and family watching at home. At the time, David was 28 and Kelly was 18, which makes me personally lean toward the cousins explanation. The affair theory is supported mainly by gossip and by the undeniably romantic, secluded nature of the location. So there you have it. What was meant to be the dramatic end of a natural icon instead became the beginning of a new chapter, one shaped not just by erosion and geology, but by human curiosity, rumor, and our deep love for storytelling. In collapsing, the London Bridge did not disappear from history. It transformed it, turning a moment of destruction into a richer, more layered narrative that continues to captivate us decades later. And so, thank you for watching my first YouTube video. You know how the algorithm works, so please subscribe and like this video. And if you were to subscribe, then I'll see you again in my second video. Bye!